Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة، حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. The Most High, the Highest, the All, Al-Kalam, knows your secrets and disclosures. The Al-Kalam knows what you will earn and lose, as your body knows your every thought and move. The prayer. This is what they taught of prayer. This is what they taught of prayer. You pray in distress and in your need, that you might pray also in the fullness of your joy and in your days of abundance. For what is prayer but the expression of yourself into the living ether? And if it is for your comfort to pour your darkness unto space, it is also for your delight to pour forth the dawning of your heart. And if you cannot but weep when your soul is summons you into prayer, she should spur you again and yet again through weeping until you shall come laughing When you pray, you rise to meet in the air those who are praying at that very hour, and whom save in prayer you may not meet. Therefore, let your visit to the masjid be invisible, for naught but ecstasy and sweet communion. For if you should enter the masjid for no other purpose than asking, you shall not receive. And if you should enter into it to humble yourself, you shall not be lifted. Or even if you should enter into it to beg for the good of others, you shall not be heard. It is enough that you enter the temple invisible. I cannot teach you how to pray in words. Listen to the messages of Anu. From the Allahum to your words, save when he himself utters them through your lips. And I cannot teach you the prayer of Yam, meaning the seas and the forests and the mountains. But you who are born of the mountains and the forests and Yam can find their prayer in which are thine, into the days which are thine also. You cannot ask for aught. For thou knowest our needs before they are born in us. You are our need, and in the giving us more of thyself, thou givest us all. But those who know pray this prayer: Our Heavenly Father, for you are of the all, and the all in the all, and all is in you, your head of the 300 Ijiji, of those Anunnakis who are still in the sky. O most holy, your name is found amongst the holy ones, the Anunnakis of the heavens. For you wore the name all the things that were brought into existence. Blessed is your name, O most holy. Your name is found amongst the holy ones, the Anunnaki of the heavens. For you were the name of all the things that were brought into existence. Blessed is your name. Nothing and no one can give you a name, for your name is of the all. You have been appointed Anu, and Anu, your kingdom will come, and what you will and ask of us will be done on earth, Timat, just as things are done in the heavenly skies amongst the Anunnaki. We ask you to please give us the breath of life each day where we rise, and we will procreate as you wish, and forgive us if we disagree, as we forgive those who disagree with us, and protect us from the evil ones and their temptations. For you are the ruler of all kingdoms, and all power is yours, and the glory forever and ever. And we know you have appointed one of the Yahwehians, your own grandson, Adonai Tammuz, as our shepherd, and we have all that we need, as you and the Anunnakis declare. Verily, we have given you all the abundance. So pray unto your sustainer and offer. Verily, your enemy shall be the one cut off. His seed will be cut off after 6,000 years from the most holy day. He let us rest in the outer fields of green grass and leads us to the quiet pools of fresh water. He gives us new strength. He guides us in the right path as he has promised. Even if we go through the deepest fears of death, we will not be afraid because we know that you are with us. Your flare, rod, and your wasp protect us from disagreeableness. You prepare a table for us where all our enemies can see. You welcome us as an honored guest upon your ship and fill our cup to the brim. We know that your goodness and love shall be with us all the days of our life, and your house will be our house as long as we exist. I am your reader, High Priestess Shimshas Renaissance of Noon, aka Shabanda, page 262. Themselves, or do you prefer the life on this planet? Your kingdom come on earth as it is in Orion. For the great day of the rapture will come for those aligned, where they will be taken abroad the great craft, there to be taught by Sananda or Tammuz for the period of one day, which could be 1,000 years, then to return to the teachers of the survivors. This will be preceded by the seven great thunders, which are the signs of the times. Although the state of this planet after the old heavens and the old earth is taken away, and the new sky and the new earth is born, do you want to be hereafter, or as they say in the hereafter? Hereafter, the rapture of the disagreeable. Religious people are tricked and taken from here, never to return. Barely all of this is in it's in the first pages. The Sahuf, as recorded in Al's Holy Quran 87:19, where Abraham was given his Torah, where it speaks of the coming of a man with great extraordinary powers, who will be the Meshach to his people, a Messiah. This same person was none other than Abraham, the name under which he was born, to later be known as Abraham and later Ibrahim, just like Merlin acted the part of the ambassador and went to Nimrod about the birth of Abraham. So also did Nisku, the ambassador, went talked to the Cushites concerning the birth of Kadmon. However, they did not agree with the plan. Say, O you El Kufaram, those who conceal that which they know to be the facts, knowledge. I am not a slave to what you are a slave to, and you are not a slave for him, whom I am a slave for, El Elohim El Lee. And I am not a slave for what you are a slave for, spook gods, shrines, kabbas, and you are not slaving for him who I am slaving for, Elohim, 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 Anu. You will have your deen, the way of life, decision, and I will have mine. Tablet 4, the disagreeable Kuthites. Lo, the Kuthites rejected the ambassadors Gabriel, Zadok, son of Raziel, and Zamiel, and Machiel, Zadok, son of Enki, and Dimkina, who were called El Musulumat. Yet they could not refuse Enki himself, also known as Israel, Zadok, son of Anu, and I, because the Cushites were of a disagreeable nature, they were called those who concealed what they know to be true. Nergal became ruler of the Cushites, a disagreeable tribe. Ninti and Enki were on the surface of Eridu, falsely called Earth, while Arishkajal and Nergal were in Zoab or Abzu. All of them were the children of Anu, who were rulers of the sky. The Enki, Kidjuites, were of a barbaric nature, and they stood 7 feet tall, and they were covered with six either fur from head to toe. So from this you get the word barber. The Inkidjuits originally came to Earth, which is called Tiamat, to hunt dinosaurs and other prehistoric animals. Page 63. Pre-Adama story. They loved it so much that they claimed it as home. The Pettites, the Pettites, also known as Hittites, were on Earth, now called Earth, Tiamat. When the Kidjuites arrived, 10:37 p.m. on my alarm. Make it real. Confront yourself. A being that emerged from the water, who stood 4 feet tall and were called pygmy, yet they possess a passive nature. The scientists bred two extreme natures, the barbaric Kidjuites, six eaters, and the passive Pettites, nine eaters, to get the Homo erectus, which were the upright beings. The nature of the six-ether Homo erectus were extremely barbaric from the original Hindus. Thus they were called Behemoth, the beast of the field, who was also bred into what later became known as Hulu, Flugelrod. They were bred 2,400 years before the cursed seed of Canaan, who was born an albino, but cursed a leopard. Yet the nature of the nine either Homo erectus called Nibuns was extremely passive, along with all of the seeds bred by their mixing between them and the taller tribe called Dunakael. The animal original members of the Hulu, Flugelrod, and Dunakael never excited the caverns of the earth to become surface dwellers again. Many of the dissatisfied amongst them came to the surface. They are often called the seven men of the caves, with their backs to the light, seeing only shadows of themselves, but of their seeds. Did these tribes of the beings come? The Negroid of the Danant Kael, all dark-skinned, woolly-haired, wide-nosed, big lips, and the Caucasoids of the Fulgarads, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and pale skin. Also in the caverns of the earth, not as far down as Shambhala, but for there are 8 caverns. Therein you'll find the Teros, as they are called by the Almani Germans. However, originally they are called Sunnanans or Synanans. You'll also find the Duwani, also called leprechauns or bucks, and you also have the Diros, originally called Sumuwanin, a sign mean, and the Ganesha or Ganesha, and Ganapati, that is the fourth and favorite son of Siva. He was also called the king of obstacles and the leader of the impish attendants of Siva. We was used he was used before battles to prevent snags and ignorance. He is portrayed with an elephant's head and a pot belly and four arms, often holding a pot of sweet meats and a reddish or holding one of his tusks in his hand and prayer beads. The fact that this Hindu deity has an elephant head and trunk is no coincidence. 10:41 p.m. on my alarm. Say it with your eyes first. And so you have the SHYUKH or DUNAAKIL, who originally left the planet Ritz and took residence in Shambhala, but eventually had to set up their own cavern. The chief of the DUNAAKIAL called Wabani Faru, the Negroid seed or Mur married a SUNAYNANTERO, comma, the Mongoloid seed, a brown seed chieftain daughter named Lucinas against her will just to establish peace in the caverns. For the DUNAAKIAL were being attacked by the SAAMIYNDERO, who the page 264. SIYNIYN, comma, TERO, comma, were supposed to keep under control because they were violent, destructive, and aggressive beings. So, to bring about a peaceful coexistence, the chief of the Teros, whose name was Lamsa, gave his daughter to Farouk, the chief of the DUNAAKIAL. Farouk gave his daughter, excuse me, because they were violent, destructive, and aggressive beings. So, to bring about a peaceful coexistence, the chief of the Teros, whose name was Lamamsa, gave his daughter to Farouk. The chief of the Dun Nakiel, Farouk gave his daughter Radiah to Lamasa, chief of the Teros, to marry his oldest son named Hatif. Lucina's bore Farouk no children. She, by a shadow hour, left the caverns and went to the surface and sought out Farouk's brother, Yishak, who lived in the best part of the planet in the enclosed garden in Saudi Arabia and Mecca. She was welcomed by Yishak, who hated his twin brother, Farouk, who took his wife, Lucina's, as his own. Farouk and Yitzhak had 5 other brothers, namely Ammo, Hesai, Rama, Akha, Sad, and Tunde, all save the first 2 saved within the cavern. Amu, who was also a runaway, lived 20 miles outside of the enclosed garden at the site where the bodies of Kadmon and Eve are buried, called Mount Arafat. There was originally a village within which an illegitimate birth between Yitzhak and his brother Farouk's wife, Lucina's, occurred. Lucina was mad at her father, Lamsa, for giving her away, for she always longed to marry a Tyrol such as herself. So she, out of anger, had a child by Yitzhak, the disagreeable, yet reformed brother of Farouk. So her child would be of no service to her tribe. They gave birth to an unsightly being with the head size of 2 men by no fault of his own. As a child, he was the object of much attention because he had the head the size of 2 men. And when he grew up, many referred to him as the big head scientist, Yakub, as he was called, wanted to get revenge on his people for their scorn and their mockery. This was an opportune time for disagreeable Palladians from Pleiades, a star cluster in the Taurus constellation, to tap into his brains and inspire an unsightly thing. He was led to have faith that he could create a race of people that would rule over his own people, and then he would rule the whole planet. The people around him that got air of his diabolical plan would ask him, will these people be wicked and warlike? He simply answered, only I know that answer, you do not. He knew that he would be their God. He got his idea 8,400 years ago. The process would take 600 years, which would take him to the year 7,800. Yet the cursed seed of Canaan would manifest 6,600 years ago, according to their story or his story. This God, Yaqub, created his own Adam in his image, after his likeness. In the image of a human being, wicked and weak minded, that was overcome with jealousies and envies. He was born with an inferiority complex and to subject the world to their wish of superiority. A new man, a kind of man, simply mankind. Yaqub owned his peculiar appearance to the fact that he was mixed, for Terrell's was hydrocephalic. "10:52 p.m. on my alarm. Are you getting too attached to an ideal of success?" Page 265. And Yeehaw was a Dunakael who also had large craniums. But his wife, named Lucina, was herself disagreeable, from the tribe of agreeable Teros, who had a dome-shaped skull. This combination produced the unsightly Yaqub. The Teros lived in the adjacent caverns to the Danaski owls. The Pterolucinas refused to stay amongst the Danaske owls, for she was always teased about her cone-shaped head. Thus, she came to the surface to seek out the surface Danakiel. This surface-dwelling Dunakael, who was brother of her husband Yishhak, was abstract-looking among surface dwellers, for his cranium was extremely large. This mixture gave birth to Yaqub. Yet they were the wisest of the wise in that land. They referred to them simply as the aliens because of their contact with the Palladians. Not only did her son have a head the size of two men, but two brains, both activated by visitors from Aldebaran, a double star in the Taurus constellation, and Pleiades, a cluster of stars in the Taurus constellation. His name was called Yaqub, who was also known as Yahakobi, son of Yishhak. He is also known as Yaqub, as well as Yaqub-Her, Yaqub-El, or Bar Yishhak. His mother's name was Lucinus, the terror of the original tribe of Lunarians, who came to this planet to dwell beneath the surface. The Lunarians occupied Kingu before the Hindu or the Meldikians came here. She was not in agreement with the tarot marrying a Danakiel for political reasons. Rebellion, being weak and wicked. Her trials and tribulations led to her desire to destroy men, unknowing to her that this was prophesied by the wise 24 scientists called Magi's, the Magi's, who by the stars, who predicted his birth 15,000 years ago and charted his birth to be 8,400 years when he was actually born. So he was born in the house in the land of his uncle, Amo, 20 miles outside of Bakar, and later to return there at age 5 with a determined idea to bring about a new people and to teach them to rule for 6,000 years. This creation was not to be perfected or completed until his people reached the place called Pelion, a peak 1,601.9 m, 5,252 feet high of northeast Greece in the mountain region of eastern Thessaly. His beast-like people took refuge in the caves of the mountains ruled by the Enkiduites called Chiron, son of Cronus, and his wife Philiria. Chiron and Artemis were educated by Apollo himself, and together they were the masters of medicine. Apollo was the son of Zeus, and Leto, called the deity of light, the sun, alchemy, and medicine, who coined the phrase, know thyself, a phrase used by his followers throughout time. This is their story, as recorded by the Mormon. Long ago, a spirit child was, page 266. A spirit child was born named Tagua to a well-known race of blonde-haired, blue-eyed beings. His parents were jinns and jinnettes. Later, he was to be reborn or reincarnated to physical parents through obedience, death, and resurrection. The spirit child elevated to be amongst the deities. They believed this one, Tihuat, to be their Lord, a heavenly Father, calling him Elohim, El-Lah-Ur, and Kanaz, who lived near a star called Kalub in the Pleiades constellation near the Lords and Masters. Tuat became the prince of cherubs, and he had billions of spirit children called jinns. that were born, giving him the title Jan, ruler of the jinns. So Elohim, as the heads of the deities, called a great council meeting to decide the destiny of the disagreeable spirit children. Both of the Elohim's elder sons were there, Diabolus and his brother Zaius. A plan was presented to them to go to Tiamat, Earth, and rebuild there, and then to send these spirit children to live and take on mortal bodies and learned agreeableness from disagreeableness in hopes to alter their nature for the best. Diabolus stood up and put his bid in as savior of the new world, wanting all of the glory for himself, forcing all to become deities under him. Thus, he became known as Abba Alas. Opposing this idea, Zaius said, why not give them freedom of choice as other beings? Why not give them freedom of choice as other beings? The vote that followed was in favor of Zaius. This enraged Diabolus, who convinced a great many of the spirits destined to go to Tiamat the earth to revolt. 11:03 p.m. on my alarm. Are you catering to other people's needs? Thus, Diabolus became the devil, and his followers became demons. Those who stayed neutral in decisions were cursed with black skin. This is your dark-skinned, straight-hair Hindu, also called Dravidians. Those spirit children destined to be banished from their own star constellation of Kalub. Also, Caleb fought on behalf of them not wanting to be exiled to the planet Earth. They would in time be grafted and would become pale-skinned and be born to human parents. One of the Dravidians and his wife came down to earth as their Adam and Eve to start their race. Then thousands of years after that, a Dravidian named Cronus came in human form to earth from the star-based Kalub to have sex with the virgin Raya to provide Zaius with a physical body. After Zaius came to adulthood, he took 3 wives, Ma'aya, Metis, and Nesmosin. and fathered a number of children. Among them were Apolia, father of Hamartia, from which many pale-skinned earthlings came to be a direct descendant before his crucifixion. Many think him to be Yahshua bar David ha Mashik Yahshua Abun Daduad al Masud. After Zaiusus resurrected, he appeared in the land of frogs to the Navajo, who are of the original Yazrieli or Jacobites, page 267. By 421 AD, the dark-skinned Navajo tribe called the Lamanites, who are of the original Hopi tribe, had come to this land 16,000 years ago. The name Hopi comes from the word Hapi Tishunumu, meaning peaceful people. The Hopis first settled in Arabia, Arizona, America. They descended from Hapi, the fourth son of Ha, high up on the mountain, the ancient name of Horus of Egypt, whose symbol was the falcon, and which of his sons symbolized a falcon as well, which resulted in the Hapi tradition of the Kachina Dao, which is a symbol of the spirit embodying the power of the divine ego spirit called Wahoo. His other sons were Mset, Quebehsenuf, Duamuttef, and the last was Hapi. They protected the dead. Horus was the son of Osiris and Isis, not to be mistaken with another Horus who was the brother of Set and the son of Amun-Ra, the grandfather of Osiris. They were guided to this sacred place by way of a flying craft saucer that was piloted by Kachina, the deity of the Hapi, the deity of Ma'asau, placed in the hands of the Hapi a set of stone tablets called Tipani, a symbol of power and authority. The Hapis are directed descendants of more ancient Anazis who claim their origin from the Star People. The word Anasari is from a Navajo word meaning the ancient ones. The Anasazi built the numerous communal dwellings or pueblos, many known now in ruins, on the high plateau of the southwestern United States. The Happy prophesied certain stories of the inner earth city being called Palatquapi, which have secret openings or passageways leading inward and downward to the inner earth, which are located throughout the Grand Canyon area in northwest Arizona, America. They say that the beings that built the inner earth city came from the Pleiades. The Hapis also claim that the inhabitants who live in this city are humanoid type beings, some 7 feet tall, with blonde hair and blue eyes, who have small holes in the middle of their foreheads containing the third eye, and was the symbol of their telepathic power. These inhabitants that they are referring to are the Flurgerods. The Patwapi was the name of the Flurgerods caverns, which has an entrance into the Slyly Mountains, a region of east-central Greece between the Pindus Mountains and the Aegean Sea as well. Their history can be traced to Pleiades, often called Seven Sisters. The Happy have named them Chuch-Khan, meaning those who cling together. They claimed their descendancy had a direct connection with the Palladians. They had defeated all the spirit children who were pale-skinned Nephilians called Nephites in a great battle. The battle was recorded on gold plate and cuneiform. Joseph Smith said he had stumbled upon them in his own backyard in the New Babylon in America. Mon.Holy or Moroni, the last Nephilian who buried them in hills of Qumran, 1,400 years lasted a descendant of Moroni, son of Moron, a Mormon, named Joseph Fielding Smith Jr., who was known for his lies and storytelling, who tells of his ancestry. His page 268. Family members and their early abodes. He tells of an unusual excitement about religion and how it is to prevail in the Western world, namely New York. He determines to seek wisdom as directed by James, proclaiming the Father and Son appeared, and Joseph is then called to his prophetic ministry, being born in Vermont, America. 11:13 p.m. on my alarm. Are you looking for stress? He calls himself prophet of the Mormons, a German word meaning bugbear, a specter or hoblin, a gull, gargoyle, a spirit, a spook, a orgy, augur. Wherefore, it was an abridgment of the record of the people of Nephi and also of the Lamanites written to the Lamanites, who are a remnant of the house of Israel, and also to Jew and Gentile written by the way of commandment, and also by the spirit of prophecy and of revelation, written and sealed up that and hid up unto the Lord, that they might not be destroyed, to come forth by the gift and power of God, until the interpretation thereof by the gift of God. He was raised by the height of the prophethood, because he claimed to have had visions that instructed him to organize an assembly, because all Zizraelites' creeds are an abomination, and they disregard the original rules and regulations. And of their original purpose, which was the conquering and ruling over the planet and the spawning new families throughout. Greece became the home of these spirit children who had manifested in the flesh and were indeed goblins. Greece was their home base. the seed of Yaqub, was to seek them out for unknown reasons. The hidden meaning was in the real name Patmos, a place of my own killing that is Patmos in the Aegean Sea. That is Greece, where this mad scientist Yaqub was to create a new race to destroy his own people and himself. Yet he died at age 150 and never saw the completion of his creation. They were all to be healthy, strong, and good breeders. This new god, Yaqub, made the phlegorods by genetic splicing called grafting. They were called Jews, Gews and Jews, to show forth his power and his wisdom, declaring himself the righteous. And he made a people genetically and mentally weak to give them the power to rule. Then he intended to eliminate them to show and prove that he is God, always was and always will be. So his mother left Shambhala during the shadow hours. She surfaced and sought out the home of Farouk's brother, Yakshhak, who lived in Bakar. This is where the story of Plateau of the 7 men in the cave comes from. These are the 7 brothers, namely Farouk, Yakshhak, Amo, Hissei, Yahma, Yaksad, and Tunde. Let me show in a figure how far our nature is enlightened or unenlightened. Behold human beings living in the underground cave, which has a mouth open towards the sun. Here they have been from their childhood and are chained, so they can only see what is in front of them. Behind them a fire is blazing, and they are not allowed to turn their heads. So, like ourselves, they see only their own shadows, the shadows of one another, or of page 269. Objects they possess, which the fire throws on the opposite wall of the caves. Further, this prison has an echo which is heard from people on the outside. The prisoners within have always fancied when one of the passerby passing shadow. To them, the truth is literally nothing but shadows. Of true images, they know nothing. Look again now. You see, what will naturally follow is the prisoners are set free and come to realize their errors. At first, when one of them is liberated and suddenly compelled to turn his head and look around, look towards the light, he will suffer sharp pains. The glare will distress him. He will be unable to see the realities in which his former state of illusions he saw only the shadows. He will at first fancy that the shadows that he formerly saw are truer than the real objects which are now revealed to him. He will be required to grow accustomed to the sight of the upper world. At first, he will see the shadows best. Last of all, he will be able to see the sun in its own proper place and not merely its reflection. He will then understand that the things which he and his fellows have been accustomed to behold. When he remembers his old habitation and the wisdom of the caves and of his fellow prisoners, he will pity them. And if the inhabitants of the cave have been in the habit of conferring honors among themselves, he would no longer care for such honors or envy the possessors of them. He will endure anything rather than think as they do and or live after their manner. And if such a one were suddenly to come back out of the sun and place himself again in his old situation, he would be certain to have his eyes full of darkness. It would be very bad for him if there were to contest and he had to compete in measuring the shadows with the prisoners who had never moved out of the cave. In such an instant, the men of the cave would say of him, "He went up and down, he came without his eyes." They will maintain that it is better not even to think of ascending. Hence, if anyone tried to lose another prisoner from the cave and lead him up to the light, then let only catch the offender, and they would put him to death. And the Yishhak, who put to death for that very reason, for the violating the sacred oath of the Dunakala by marrying Farouk, his brother's wife. This further outraged the already deranged Yaqub. Lucina, mother of Yaqub, was dissatisfied with the tranquility of Shambhala, living under the Nashkaya's rules and regulations. She found the home of Yishkak, who took her in, and they birthed an illegitimate child. His mother Lucina, overcome by grief at the remembrance of her home Shambhala, died an untimely death. And the following year of Yishkak was killed, leaving the 5-year-old Yaqub parentless. Yaqub started school at the age of 4. By age 6, Yaqub was living with his uncle Amo, the brother of his father Yahak, who himself many years before was cast from Shambhala for disagreeable activity. Thus, He also took, page 270, residence on the surface of the earth. Yaqub was living with Ammon in his home 20 miles outside of Becca. He was fascinated by magnetism. This further affected the mental state of this now young man living in the area where the original Garden of Eden was, yet 20 miles outside of the original site of the enclosed Garden of Delight. In a village in a mountain region called Arafat. The foundation of the Garden of the Delight was built by Arazu and Ashnan, was responsible for the grain and the substance of the garden, and this enclosed Garden of Delight was to be the best part of the planet Earth. It was ruled by one of the 120 Akhashadran Fan, appointed by Kaurish, who ruled from the seat of Mades in Chaldea, land of the demons. At the age of 18, Yaqub had already finished all of the schools of learning in his day and time. This is where Yaqub was to convert the people needed for the breeding of his new race. In the task of making a disagreeable, wicked, and physically weak being with the ability to rule with a special kind of reverse knowledge, Yaqub had a verbal fight with the Elohim of the city, the holy city of who opposed him by deserting his people and going off to make a new people. That would be weak and wicked, that use their evil nature to try and conquer the righteous. They would be called the devil, and their lifespan to rule would be 6,000 years, which they would have lived as a new nation. This reverse lived, and you get the devil, and live in reverse is evil. Why reverse? Because his nation was born with dyslexia and they wrote from left to right, as opposed to the original right to left. Long before Yaqub was allowed to begin his undertaking, the word spread of his plan. One of the Elohim stepped forward of the righteous nation named Maluk, whose job was to try to convince him not to undertake this evil act. It results in a physical fight against Yaqub that lasts from 6 p.m. during the shadow hours, straight on past to 12:01 a.m. the next day. This is it. This it is said that they fought up until the next day, and Yaqub had his right leg disjointed. Yaqub inquired of this Elohim, who was a mortal man in physical form at the end of the fight. What is your name? Only to be told, it is not written for you to know my name. This fight took place in Peniel, located on the north bank of Jabbok, close to the Jordan. Of Yaqub came face to face with an El. From that day on, Yaqub was crippled, walking with a limp, carrying a cane. This man opposed the fact that Yaqub left the camp during the shadow hours, and he was trying to cross the lake of Jabbok, a stream which intersects the mountain range of Galilee and falls into the Jordan on the east about the midway between the Sea of the Galilee and the Dead Sea. With his assistance of doctors, nurses, and page 271, cremators, which by shadow hours they deserted all the rest of his family. And this Maluk declared that he would break both his legs before he let him pursue this undertaking. And the making of this new breed of people from his own genes, being an original Negroid and brown Mongoloid germ. The Negroid black germ from his blood, the blood of the Danakal, and the Mongoloid brown germ from his blood, the blood of the Teros who had mixed the Palladians long ago. The conflict broke out, and the fight ensued. And when Yaqub's leg was dislocated, he held on to Maluk as the wicked troops of Shahar was coming over the horizon. Maluk said, "Let me go, and you will have the blessing of the god of the Babylonian Ishtar, the god of the Egyptian Ra, and the god of the Sumerian El. You will have their blessings. Just don't pursue your undertakings. You shall be called equal Ishtar, Ra equals Amun Ra, and El Elhu. That represented the three most powerful gods on the planet at the time, Isis, Ra, and El. Thus he became known as Israel. Touched by the hand of an Elohim, you say Israel. Yaqub agreed, yet deceived him, saying to all that he has got the blessings which has given him constant to continue across the stream of Jabbok, and to continue in his undertaking on his journey to Pelion, a peak 1,601.9 m 5,252 feet high of northeast Greece, in eastern Thessalia, in the Isles of Patmos, an island of southeast Greece, in the Dexianese island, in the Aegean Sea, where he was going to create his people and make them weak and wicked and give them the power to rule for 6,000 years. Yaqub was captured as Yaqub made converts in and around the holy city of Bakar. Persecution set in. The authorities became afraid of such powerful teachings with promises of luxury and making slaves of others as they began making arrests of those who believed the teachings. The officers would go back and find, and to their surprise, others were still teaching and believing it. Finally, they arrested Yaqub. However, it only increased the teachings. They kept persecuting and arresting Yaqub's followers until they filled all the jails called a prison or sanjun beneath the desert sands. The 120 appointed Ashkatafarian officers finally reported to the new ruler named Kauresh that there was no room for the prisoners. They had no more room for Yaqub's converted followers who were enraged for his abuse. They dragged Yaqub from his cell to the middle of the city. There they built a stone pillar to the center of the town and called it the seat of Satan, called Al-Aluyula, where they tied Yaqub and asked the people of that city, should he be worshipped, praised, or stoned? They chose to stone him and call him Shaitan. Yaqub's followers rioted in the prison. Page 272. All the jails were filled, and they said, when we go back out into the streets, we found them still teaching. This is what was reported to the king Kauresh. What shall we do with them? The king questioned the officers on just what his teachings were, and of the name of the leader, they replied, Haggai. When the officers had given the king the answers to everything, the king said, this is not the name of that man. This man is Yaqub, the Negroid scientist, an alien to our land, a mischief maker in the land. This Shaitan was predicted by our Magus 15,000 years ago. On entering the prison, the king was shown Yaqub's cell. The walls were lined with stretches and plans of his future experiments. The ruler said, so you are Yaqub? He said, yes, I am. The king said, Yaqub, I have come to see if we could work out some agreement that we could bring about an end to this trouble. What would you suggest? Yaqub told the king Kauresh, if you give me and my followers everything to start a civilization as you have, and furnish us with money and other necessities of life for 20 years, I will take my followers and we will go from you. The king was pleased with the suggestion, and request made by Yaqub was sent to Mithridath, the money exchanger, and it was agreed to take care of them for 20 years until Yaqub's followers were able to go for themselves. After learning who Yaqub was, believing him to be Shaitan or the devil himself, they all were afraid of him, and they were glad to make almost any agreement with him and his followers. This is the history or future of Yaqub and his people. The Asiatic black men and women, black people with six either straight hair of Hindu descent. Upon his release, Yaqub was not allowed to preach. Yet his head prophet, called Haggai, prepared his followers. He prepared his followers. But for his master plan, he needed to convert loyal followers that would obey him regardless of who or what. This was executed by the loyal ones. Before this secret project could begin, there must be a great many people converted to his beliefs. He first traveled 20 miles inland from his uncle's house to the holy site where the tree of knowledge did sit. There he started to preach in the street of Becca again, making such hosts of converts that the authorities, increasingly concerned, finally exiled him. Making such hosts of converts that the authorities, increasingly concerned, finally exiled him, and he and a small band of his followers, the doctors, the nurses, and the crematories, crossed northward, up and over the Jordan and over to Egypt, which was originally called Ta, meaning land, and also Tamarah, meaning land of Ra, which they took ships into the Aegean Sea to await the arrival of the guinea pigs. He died of a brain tumor at age 150 before they arrived, but his scientists were prepared. Page 273. The scientists, or his wise men, the El Hakamat of his day, said it couldn't be done. He departed, for they planned a plan to kill him and exile his followers. However, those who supported his undertakings prepared the greatest fleet of ships to sail. And Haggai, with 59,999 followers, sailed on a journey for a home in Ganawa, there to stay for 50,000 years or until the new cycle. This journey took him and his prophet Yaqub's followers completely around the continent, but not before there was a great falling away and dissatisfactions amongst his Yaqub's followers. In fact, about 9/10 of them were dissatisfied, for many did not want to leave their homeland. Great ships were prepared at the dock port in Sudan called Sauda. The outer field. The Asiatic black men who were followers of Yaqub and lived on the best part of the planet Earth were banished for following this alien and disregards of the laws of the land, their own land. 11:46 p.m. on my alarm. Push yourself. 30 minutes to the stream. The time came for them to seek a new homeland of their own. Yaqub promised them a land flowing with milk and honey and streets paved in gold. On this journey, as rumors spread from ship to ship that Yaqub's scientists were doing blood tests and experimenting and even throwing overboard those they couldn't use or were panic stricken, and they began to jump ship at several ports. Sheshbazzar, called Haggai himself, jumped ship in Cape Town, being without guidance. They wanted to go home and repent. The descendants of the dissatisfied had no remorse against their ancestors, the Chaldeans, the Hindus. They just wanted to return to their homeland of Asia. Their leader, Zerubbabel, known also as Sheshbazzar, which became the name of this lost tribe, and Haggai. Thus, having boarded the ships, 600 heads per ship, making 100 ships. Unbeknown to them, it would take them around the whole continent of Ganawa, Ejudua, which is another name of Sheshbazzar. He led the tribe Shabazz on a pathless journey. The journey was to a place called Oyo. The people there referred to his followers as Yoruba. They called him Abatala. His priesthood was called Orisha. Each was an Oba or a Papal. He was the first pope. They sailed around the whole of Gonawa. There was 59,999, and Sheshbazzar, or Ajudua, called Baba Sheshbazzar, made the 60,000th person. They had to make a 360 circle of Gonawa, leaving off the Suez Canal. They sailed in 100 boats with 600 people each. Sheshbazzar himself was on the first ship. Sheshbazzar jumped ship in Cape Town and never completed the journey, and it was there that he died at age 120. He is known to have wandered throughout Ganawa as the wise old elder and sat in the circle of elders in page 273, page 274. Diaphragm 23 map showing the stop points of Haggai and his followers during the journey around the continent of Africa. Duwanban, page 275. Where the internal fire burns, and there was buried. There he was buried. Many of the ships never made it. They docked along the shores of the Gonawa. The original name of Africa was Ganawa or Nawa. They often mixed up the name Kushites with the name Kusites. These Kutites were mixed Hindus, having straight hair, and they were the original black man, not to be mistaken with the incarnated gods who already lived in the Gonawa and had woolly hair. The port of Sudan was their launching point in the Red Sea or Reed Sea, and they passed through Mandeb. Some jumped ship in Djibouti, where you find black skin and straight hair. They were passing through the Gulf of Aden, land of the Nabateans, through the tip of Manab, passed on over to Enlil in Somalia, where there is black skin and straight hair. 11:52 p.m. on my alarm. Are you ready to share your true self with other people? Down, going around from the Indian Ocean on around to the Atlantic, stopping off at Cape Town where the Shabazar disappeared. The ships continued on up to the Atlantic Ocean. They dropped people off in Walvis Bay and inland of the Atlantic Ocean on the western coast of Namibia, where the people have black skin and straight hair. They proceeded on up and they stopped in Luanda and Angola. When they arrived in Angola, they had to break port because the Angolans referred to them as Negra and they attacked their ships. This term was later to change into Negra Omega, or simply Negroes, those dead blacks, Negra, or more Mournos or Moors. They were called Moors by the French, and some grafted this term Moors into their language from what they were being called in the Latin Morinos, Moor for blackness, which was a complement to the term Negra, meaning black. The Moors were called Moors, also called more than prefixes many names today as Mars or in Martin, Morris, Morrison, Mauritania, Morgan, Moorhead, Maurice, Marine, Morgan, Morale, Morehouse, Marie, Morori, Morphe, and many more. Even the prefix of Irish names such as MacDonald, McDouglas, McDougall, McVeigh, McCrae. The MC was the abbreviation for the presence of Moors in Ireland, so they took residence and named the place Nigeria, home of Yoruba tribes. But the woolly-haired people of that land refused to mix with them, so they were forced to depart, only leaving their religious system of Orishi, the system of ancestral worship which they brought from Arabia, called Yoruba. Page 276. The land where teraphim have always been worshipped, such as the moon deity Allah, which in 1950 Wendell Phillips, W.F. Albright, Richard Bauer, and other excavated sites at Kotaban, Timnah, and Merib, the ancient capital of Sheba. Thousands of inscriptions from walls and rocks in northern Arabia have also been collected. A major temple to the moon god was excavated at Hazar in Palestine. Excuse me. Two idols of the moon god were found. Each was in stature of a man sitting upon a throne with a crescent moon carved on his chest. Several smaller statues were also found, which were identified by their inscriptions as the daughters of the moon god. Reliefs and votive bows were used in worship of the daughters of Allah, and they have also been discovered. The three daughters, Al-Alat, Al-Uzza, and Manat, are sometimes depicted together with Allah, the moon god, represented by a crescent moon above them. Their religious system was created with the ability to adapt to anyone else's culture, as in the case of Santeria or Bergeria or Voodoo, also called Juju, where the Yoruba gods Shango, Oshun, Yemaya, Oya, Ogun, Ishu Elegbara, Shopana, Sonopano, Olodi Legbana, Yemonya, Okokun, Olubo, Sanyin, Arisha, Oko, Ejimo, Arunsin, and Adudua. This was taught by their great ancestor and god Yakub. The religious system was created to be able to supplant itself over others, and absorb them like a dying star consumed other stars. It ramped down on Judaism to create Islamism. It ramped down on Christianity to create Santeria. It ramped down to Satanism to create voodoo. Then the ships continued up the Atlantic Ocean to Sierra Leone, where there is black skin and straight hair, straight on top of, to Mauritania, where there is blackened skin and straight hair, to Morocco, where there is black skin and straight hair, passed through port of Tangier, where there is black skin and straight hair, onto Mediterranean Sea, where they stopped off in Algeria, where there is black skin and straight hair, and Bezerete and Tanish, where there is black skin and straight hair, and topped off to Tripoli in Libya, where there is black skin and straight hair, and Alexandria of Egypt, where there is black skin and straight hair. They supplanted themselves on the seashore of Mother Ganawa, mixing in and taking control. These black skinned and straight haired tribes never ventured into the heart of Ganawa, but controlled the ports and sea coast. They fathered the slave trade of the page 277. Woolly haired from Zanzibar, giving the slave their original name Zinji from the Native American word Zenini, meaning black-skinned, before Negro, but not before Mur, that became Moor. The lost tribe of Shabazz are still the majority on the sea coast around Mother Ganawa. They replaced their X with Arabic names. They called themselves the new names Egyptians, Ethiopians, DJIBOUTIANS, on around to MAURITANIANS, Moroccans, Tanzanians, still till this day. So then they sailed north across the Mediterranean to Cyprus, where they were home with their original mother goddess Europa, Europa, stopping first at the Isles of Crete, where Jacob's rules and regulations and systems on grafting and making were prepared. Those that remained behind by jumping ships at different ports in Guanawa stayed and oppressed the original woolly-haired Nubians, introducing them to mythological religious beliefs such as New Aruba, New Islam, Judaism, Christianity, and a host of others, which later became the enchantment or the spell. They also called the spell a hex. Hex, he, X, like John, who's the he, and the X, also called the hexagram. He, X, a gram. The hexagram is the symbol of the six-pointed star, which again is the form of the swastika, the skull of the seal of the Illuminati of the light and fire, symbolizing their 6,000 years of rulership over the original Israelites, and Medianites. The word gram, meaning a seed, ties in, for this was the grafting of the Zara, meaning an offspring or seed, symbolic of the sixth letter of the Aramaic alphabet and the sixth letter in the Arabic alphabet, Seta, and the sixth letter in the Greek alphabet, which is Zeta, a symbol of a snake. The word Zeta is of Hebrew origin, meaning Zion, from the root word Zain, which is where they get Zina, which means abomination. Note the use of the letter Z repeatedly. Their symbol is hidden in zigzag, zig, which is za, z, za, z, za, z, L, 666. Zig, zag, zig is the German word for zigzag, meaning to turn in the wrong direction. The beings that inspired Yakub, as well as Yakub of this day, Hitler, are from Zeta Reticuli, also referred as the Mezra constellation. Remember, seed is from Middle English, from Old English seed, said, from Latin semen, which the Greek sperma, meaning seed or sperm, or the number 6 in Greek, which is again hex or z, xe for exon, the 54th element, and its colorless or the absence of melanin, from the Greek neuter, or xenos for strange. Neuter means neither feminine or the original hermaphrodites, and the parents of these Hindus, whose religion was called Zen or Zen, from Xenos, meaning stranger, and the religion Zen Buddhism is traced back to Hindus in India. Now the hexagon, also called a polygon with 6 sides, the number, page 278, figure 86, Adolf Hitler, page 279. The sum of these angles are 720 degrees. That would be 360 degrees of the spiritual and 360 degrees of the physical. When the sides are equal on all sides, the hexagon is called regular, and each interior angle is 120 degrees. The followers of Yakub were only given 120 degrees of knowledge, not 300. 360, and knots 720. They not They only use 6 ounces of brain, and the Asiatic blacks use 7.5 ounces of brain. But you have 10 billion neurons, and your brain weight is 52 ounces. Their reticular formation, or the inner laser beam that directs the impulses to the two halves of the brain for action and reaction, is defected. Even the slaves of the slave trade are led to their fate that they are of this lost tribe of Shabazz, and don the Susquatka in the form of an X until they too can take on an Arabic name. From Alexandria, the journey continued on to their new home. These Asiatic black men with straight hair had a dissatisfied nature. Evil dwelled within them. So there was scientists met with the elders of the DUNAAKIAL, and they decided to try to graft the evil out of their nature. The results: the FLUGLELRODS came out of this genetic splicing, and the gratification is attempts to remove their disagreeable side. For evil lived within these Asiatic black men, original Hindus, since their evil ancestors came to visit the planet between the time periods of 76 billion years to 66 billion years ago. These Hindus are the ones who converted to Yaqub's plan while living in Arabia. They became the tribe of Sheshbazzar, the 13th tribe known as the Lost Tribe of Shabazz, for many of them got lost on the way. Those that survived the journey around Ganawa were used in the grafting and making of this new race. For any babies born with Negroid black genes, a pin was picked in their brain. Then next was the Mongoloid brown. They were spared to breed, to make the red, the yellow, and then Coscoy, the pale. This process took 600 years of grafting and separating. You have Negroids, Monogloids, and Caucasoids. All the other races are just that, a mixture or other. This Yaqub's nation was born. A ruler was set over them, and she was called Europa, the daughter of Agenor and sister of Cadmus. Europa was empress of this land, yet without guidance they regressed and took refuge in Pelion, a peak 1,601.9 milligram m, 5,252 feet high, of northeast Greece and eastern Thessalia. This is the Isles of the Patmos, an island of southeast Greece, and the Dodecasian islands of the Aegean Sea. Then on up into the mountain region of the Syria and into grotto, meaning caves. They conquered and enslaved the original inhabitants of the land then called Yunnan, who they were the descendants of Javan, the son of Jephthah and Ephah. And the Yunnan were also known as Ionians, the savage beasts that were grafted. Page 280. From the Asiatic Hindu black man were nothing more than the original blonde hair, blue eyed, pale skin, melanin lacking, grafted, disagreeable, rebellious seed of Yaqub, the mad scientist called Flugelrods, shameless, moralless, hair covering their body from ankle to shoulder, the beast of the field, also called behemoth. They walked on all fours and ate flesh raw, having bestiality acts. Thus the dog became their best friend. They allowed him to lick their leprous sores, and to this day they will allow them to sleep in their beds, eat off their plates, and even lick them in the mouth. They moved on to Patmos in the Aegean Sea, which is 20 miles south of the Samos, the site of Samael, and 24 miles west of Asia Minor. That is the Greek Isles. The outcome of the gratification was the Flugelrods, who were bred by mixing in the seed of the Palladians, which is blonde hair and blue-eyed, mixing and grafting from the genes of the Asiatics, black, straight-haired, and black-skinned and black-eyed Hindus, grafting from the brown germ to the red germ to the yellow germ and on into the new earth breed, the Flugelrods, also breeding the abstract black skin and blue eye. He set up rules and regulations that they were to abide by under all circumstances. Those of his followers that did not obey him were to have their throats slit from ear to ear and their bodies left on the seashore at high tide. They separated into two groups: the original Habalites, or Hablub, of Flugelrods, who became known as the Nethandrals, or simply cavemen, eating raw flesh, running around on all fours, and living in a state of bestiality. They found their way into the inner caverns of the planets. Many of them took residence there, while others in time used the trickology and terrorized other innocent tribes. Those that did not jump ship were grafted out of existence. As opposed to the Europeans, Flugelrods named Europeans after their female leader that rebelled, who is also named Europa, daughter of Noah, sister of Cadmus, known as Zeus. This Zipporah gave birth to Zeus, another Z, that's the second Zig, the first being Zeus, who had three sons, Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Sarpedon. She, Europa, eventually betrayed Zeus and remarried Asterius, ruler of Crete. At her death, she was deified as a fertility deity by Zeus. With this technology, they were given the power to rule for not less than 6,000 Earth years. They entered from the east side, where they are harbors called Ishmush, into the grotto or goto, which means cavern. One of the entrance of the Flugelrods cavern home was called Palatkwpi. This is also where the scroll of Revelation was revealed to Johanna bar Zabadi. This that is John, son of Zebedee, the divine, in the year 96 AD. All of these are names used today. You may find them on your maps for the original journey, the page 281. Asiatic blacks were divided into three classes for this journey. They lost 95% of the people. 10% of that original 95% became betrayers, leaving 85% confused, and only 5% made it to the final destination. The journey was a 360-degree cycle around the mother continent. Originally, they departed with 100 ships, which left carrying 59,999 passengers, and Shabazar himself making it a total of 60,000 passengers. Yet only 3 ships arrived at the final destination, carrying 600 people on each. A total of 1,800 people arrived in the Patmos, where the great scientists were going to spend 600 years trying to reform these disagreeable people by grafting the evil out of their genes. After futile attempts, they all agreed that it could not be done. For the making of this original seed, Yaqub, El, also called Elul, as it says, came from Timan, the south, and the Holy One, Yishkak, his father, was from Mount Paran, meaning place of the caverns that led to Shambhala. Yaqub went to the worst part of the planet Earth, where his creation would live amongst the Nakashites, where the original Samael, the Luciferians, the evil reptilians did dwell, and the abandoned place of Nod. All of them were dissatisfied. There was no one tribe of people ruling the planet Earth in Yaqub's time, so this made it convenient. So Yaqub Har vowed to be their ruler, and that he would create a people who would rule for 6,000 years until a savior was born. The Greeks and Roman Christians called him Messiah, Messias. The Zar Jews called this savior Mishak. The Muslims called him Messiah, or in Arabic meaning Masu. Yaqub was helped by a group of humanoids from Lahamu, meaning Venus. Their description is average height between 5'7" to 6'3", with a tan complexion with dark to brown skin, 6 either hair. They could pass for any Euro Arabs on Earth who had Marcabians, who are humanoids, Marcabians from Zeta Reticuli. They have mixed with humans and have been here for many thousands of years, producing what is commonly known as little people, extremely short human beings, who are neither pygmies nor midgets. The Lahumerians would use the Markimians as their servants. They have been visiting this planet for thousands of years. They refer to their planet as the early morning star. They vow to send a Venerian as a survivor to the new Asiatic black man. To him, he would appear in the person coming from Arabia. His mother will be called Mami, who is to the Chaldean gods. They'll spell it Mimi, the Kushites, and his father Alphonse, from the Greek Aleppo, meaning anointed, or Alphus, or Alfonso, Old Greek, from leprosy, from the alphos, meaning white, absence of pigment, albinism, a form of paralysis. They'll spell his name Alfonso and declare he is a Cushite. He was one of the original incarnated deities, not man. This Venerian they will call their God incarnate. He will lead them, and 282 page. Agreeable humanoid Ruminarian as a teacher named Krill. They were talking about the making of the Jew, the original ones, Shizabar, meaning worshiper of fire. We're over the 2 hour mark. The color of their flag is the sun with the moon of the star, which is a representation of the whole universe. The seed moved behind the Caucasus Mountains on up into Russia and became known as the Khazars. The woolly-haired seven-eater scientists of this seed called Asiatics were known as the Ashkhenazims. These are the grafted devils that Yaqub created. They are your Fluggelrods, original Khazars, and your Asiatics, Ashkhenazims, their symbol being the universe, the moon called Qamar, also Qamar, the sun, and the bright morning star. They use the crescent moon and the pentagram, that is the five-pointed star. The original Jacobites used the hexagon. They called Morgan David, the Star of David, or the Star of Bethlehem. They endowed their creation with 120 years of life. It took 120 degrees of knowledge to accomplish this over a period of 600 years of those who were under Yaqub's rules and regulations. There are those who use the pentagram, a five-pointed star formed by five straight lines connecting the vertices of a pentagram and enclosing another pentagon and the completed figure, or those that use the hexagon, a six-pointed star formed by extending each of the sides of a regular hexagon into equilateral triangles, and those that use the hexagon, a polygon having seven sides, each believing that their star represents the supreme power of the force that controls all aspects of existence. However, stars are born and die. 379. Stars have limited brightness. Thus, as a symbol, they would indicate a limited amount of intellect. Crescents are merely one stage of the four stages of the moon. Thus, a star in a crescent is a symbol of a limited information in time and deception, because the star can never sit in the crescent moon. For the stars are millions of times larger than the moon. Even the octagon, with each of the, the 8 points of the symbol, represents the sun and is on a 15-degree angle, and 8 times 15 equals 120, one-third of the whole, which is 360 degrees of information. This being 100 degrees, representing the awakening and the civilizing between each of the 8 points, and is a 45-degree angle that represents 360 degrees of knowledge of the physical. Then there is 360 degrees, which is the knowledge of the spiritual, of which they do not have. This symbol was worn on the chest by the great scientist Yaqub, who was born hydrocephalic, which is having a head size of two of his tribe members, the Dunaakail and the Teros. The Yaqub scientist would brand each one of his followers with a symbol called in Nuwabic AWUTH, in Aramaic ESRE, and in Asheric Syriac Asara, Ashra, which equals the original symbol X, of which you already have a great understanding of, and is your modern day cross. It became the swastika, a symbol that can be found all over the world, having four outer 90-degree angles and four inner 90-degree angles, equaling page 283. 720 degrees. Their religion was based on phallic worship, symbols representing reproduction. They prostrated themselves on all fours in remembrance of their lowly states when they were walking on all fours, living in caves and worshiping their earthly fires. Thus we have sun worship. They prostrate beneath the mammary glands of females and called it a dome, and beneath the phallic of a male and called it a minaret, giving birth to your domes and minarets of their mosques and synagogues. The X numerical value is 10 and it is symbolic of the 10th letter of the Aramaic alphabet, which is the Yod, symbolizing that they were originally under the agreeable Yahwehians, or the 10th letter of the Ashuric Syriac alphabet, which was Ra, and symbolized Ruach, the soul of creation. They were the first Negroid born with beards. They made them all clean shaven so that they would look like the original Hittites. They were to mix in with the original Cusites and await their savior who would come to them from Venus, Lahamu. There would be carefully planned breeding amongst the descendants of the Nubians under the Amorites, and one of them would be part of Nubon and part Rumaridan in the far west away from the east. They would be kidnapped and taken into bondage for 400 years. You find the symbolism in the book of Exodus of the Torah, which was plagiarized by Tammuz called Yahweh. It became the law and enforcer of the spell of ignorance, called the spell of sleep. Therein you will find the story of Yaqub cloaked in the Jacob and Esau story. This Jacob was born in the year 1918 BCE and died in the year 1771 BCE, one of Isaac and Rebekah's twin sons. And the biblical story of Jacob is a symbolical story. He is the son of Abraham and his first wife Sarah. His name is Isaac. He fathered the biblical Jacob. He is also the progenitor of the 12 tribes of Israel. It was this mentality that fathered the so-called Jews, the father of technology, from the original Yaqub story, which they read and have faith and incorporate in the new law, which they call the Protocol of the Learned Elders of Zion. Yaqub's mischief makers in the land now rule the surface of the planet, an evil and diabolical plan to control everyone, and like any other magnetic force, you will find that unalike attracts and like repels. This is also true in regards to the people. The Negroid and the Caucasoid are unalike, so they will attract. This is done through integration in order to destroy the Nubians. For Nubians dealing with Nubians repel. Why? Because like repel, and this causes fighting and separation. This is one of the reasons why Nubian people, descendants of the Nubians, can never come together to unite to overthrow the devil. The Jew, who is not a true Israelite, is the remainder of those released out of captivity. 284. 2 hours and 15 minutes and counting on the string. Surely I know about your tribulations and your poverty, always begging for money. Nevertheless, you are rich in blessings and resources, and there is great blasphemy against you by those who say, surely they are of Judah, and they are not of Judah. They are the community of the physical evil one, reptilian dragon, Nahash, or Satan, Shaitan, son of Zuin. From there they went back to Jerusalem and rebuilt Solomon's temple, which was done by a mixed people, part original Israelite and part Babylonian. This mixing occurred during the 136 years of captivity and was the start of the Jews' devilish teachings. It was predicted of him by the Magus 15,000 years ago that he would make a devil. He also named the first male of his creation Adam, and his wife was Lilith. So he was born with a determined idea to make a people to rule for 6,000 years. Originally, there was no tribe called Sheshbazzar. This was the name of a man whose name is also Zebul-Abel, leader of the mixed tribe of Judah. Sheshbazzar name was taken by the men in respect, and they called themselves Shabazz, and him they called Daddy Shabazz, who went back to Ganawa. The name Shabazz is thought to be an Arabic word, however, is actually made up of two words, Shah, which is Persian for the word king or ruler, and Baz, which is an Arabic word meaning falcon, or in Nuwabic, Ba'uz, which is the head of Horus, the symbol of the son of Osiris and Isis, who is Sumerian, was Ishtar and Tamuzi. This horse was Tammuz, or Yahweh, later to be known as Christ, from Hindu Krishna. This Messiah, or Masu, however, the name Shabazz itself comes from the word Shabazar, which literally means sun worshipper or fire worshippers. Sheshbazzar was the Hebrew form for this name is Babylonian language. You have to think, feel, breathe, eat, sleep, Egyptian. One of the Egyptians say, I am an Egyptian. Imagine yourself clothed in the royal garb of the Egyptians, standing on the ocean, looking over at the great monuments and pyramids of opposites. It was Samaj BAN-SERI-BABILI-SUR, comma, meaning, O Shamash, protect the father and builder of the seed of Babylon. Shamash was the Sumerian and Babylonian sun god, even though he was called by the name Shabazz. He was in no way affiliated with sun or fire worship, yet fire worship became the religion of the Flugelrods, who depended on him for heat and light while at the caverns. Also, we find in the caverns of the earth not Shambhala, for there are 8 caverns. Therein you'll find the Sumerian D. Ross, the Elduanis, the Sararians, Taros, and the Circassians. The making of the new race. I'm going to end this paragraph here on this page 284, and log off and return in just a few moments of my break. The making of the new race. In order to breed a being with a balanced nature, the scientists saw that the Homo erectus needed intelligence and sense. By using the blood of the sixth ether, Homo erectus, along with the blood of the ninth ether, Anunnaki, Because it was the Anunnaki's ideal to make these new beings to work in the mines, it was suggested by his wife, the scientist Ninki, use her body. I'm going to end it there and we'll return after a few moments.